Regardless of which side you're on in the Sekiro difficulty debate, one thing is clear. A lot of people think the game is very difficult, and many would like to give it a shot, but are worried about this difficulty. But the suite of accessibility options in Celeste would not exactly work in this instance. The Souls games are all about overcoming their difficulty, taking it slow, and learning how everything in the game ticks. Lowering how punishing it is, offering infinite revives, etc. fundamentally changes what the game is. So I set out to create 3 possible options that would lower the difficulty for new players and make it more accessible, but still maintain the spirit of what Sekiro and the Souls games are. This is Game Design Brainstorm. Ben here, and welcome to another episode of Game Design Brainstorm, a monthly series where I pick a game and/or mechanic and talk about why I like it, dislike it, and how it could be changed to be better, or at least more fun for me and hopefully you too. In this episode, I wanted to tackle something near and dear to my heart, the Souls games and how they could optionally be made easier for potential new fans, while also not rattling the beehive of get good purists. And you know what? I think it's totally possible. Let me clarify something right at the top though. I personally don't think any of the Souls games or Bloodborne should have difficulty modes. There's better equipment and weapons to find, you can grind to raise your stats, and even summon in several other players to significantly lower the difficulty. With all of those means of assistance, if you want an easier time, it's already there. Sekiro is different in that none of those aspects exist in the game. You can only upgrade your health after finding 4 prayer beads, usually from beating a mini-boss. And you can only upgrade your attack by beating a major and often difficult boss. So if a player is already having difficulty, these means of upgrading are pretty daunting. Without further ado, here are 3 ways Sekiro could be made easier while maintaining its hardcore spirit, and hopefully not ruffling too many feathers in the process. Option 1. Let's start with perhaps the most complex and potentially controversial option. I'm a huge fan of Castlevania 64. Yes, I know, it's not a very big fan club, but hear me out. It was a difficult game, and 10-year-old Ben switched the game to easy to be able to play more of it before falling to my death via bad platforming. What a lot of people don't remember or even know is that if you play Castlevania 64 on easy, the game abruptly ends after level 5, halfway through the game. The game prior to that point is made easier as well. If Sekiro opted for this method, it would serve as a lengthy tutorial and on-ramping for the quote-unquote real version of the game. Imagine being able to play all the way to the boss at the end of Ashina Castle at an easier level. The paths beyond it would be sealed off at the edge of the castle area, but these players would be able to get enough of the game under their belt that if they went back and started on normal, they'd have a much easier time and see that the game does in fact teach players quite a bit and isn't as challenging as they thought. Sure, the first third of the game would be toned down, but it's not the entire thing, and beating it, which is naturally the final goal, would still only be possible in the default mode. Other games have done this bait and switch difficulty thing before, but I'm a sucker for Castlevania 64 and I'm gonna bring it up whenever I can. Also, if this was implemented, it would be advised to warn players they won't be able to see everything in the game when they pick the option. Additionally, perhaps other modifiers could be used in this mode exclusively, such as the aforementioned infinite revives or being able to slow down the game speed. Then it's more accessible and it trains players for the standard difficulty level. But what about something that doesn't split the game in half arbitrarily? Option 2. As mentioned earlier, Sekiro has collectible prayer beads to upgrade vitality and boss memories to upgrade attack. The starting stats are 10 for vitality and 1 for attack, but what if there was an option that allowed players to start the game with 12 vitality and 3 attack? It might not sound like much, but this is a pretty substantial boost and would give players a much smoother path through the first 15 or so hours with the game. To counter this, the first 8 prayer beads and 2 bosses the player defeats would not offer the upgrade materials they traditionally would, instead just giving money. Then, after a player has played a good amount of the game and learned how a lot of it works, they are earning rewards as they should normally and are back to playing the same version of the game as those that did not pick this option. An easier start means players are more likely to continue and see that the power was inside them all along. And this doesn't detract from the game as a whole, as it is only used to get people up to speed, not to nerf the entire adventure. The third and final option is the only one that would persist for a large portion of the game. We'll give the player another healing gourd inversely proportional to the standard healing gourd. You start the game with 1 use of this healing gourd, but this option would offer a second gourd with 9 uses. You upgrade the main gourd to 2 uses, the other drops to 8, and so on. The main gourd heals for more HP as you unlock different skills on the skill tree and gain certain skills from mini-bosses. That's great, but the second helping gourd doesn't get those benefits. This means that early in the game, players get a nice helping hand, but by the time they have upgraded their vitality and gourd uses a fair number of times, this helper gourd becomes less and less useful. Again, this all leads to a scenario where the final parts of the game are almost exactly the same for both a player using this option and the one that opted for the traditional experience. After all, I could not care less if a player has 1 or 2 uses of a gourd that only heals for 20% of their vitality per use. That's nothing. However, this helping gourd will have gone a long way to bring players in and help them through the early portions, which can be rough, even for those that have sold before. With options like these that don't change the overall experience too much, but instead promote learning and growing, what the game mechanics are already about, I think we can agree the spirit of the game would not be compromised. Hell, I might even try one of these out on a second playthrough just for kicks. Perhaps even a mix of all 3 of these options could work to make the game more fun for those that need it. And the best part, by the last half of the game, all players will be playing the same version of it. No need to be worried about it tainting your experience. Difficulty is key to these games. Some people think adding Celeste-style options or entire difficulty levels wouldn't affect the core of the game or alter the vision, but that is kind of exactly what it does. You take away the punishing difficulty of Sekiro and you're left with a so-so action game with weird lore and cool enemy designs. You lose the sense of personal progression that is so key to the experience. That literally is what I love about the game, being able to tangibly know how much better I've gotten with its mechanics. Without it, Sekiro is much less memorable, and there's possibly no way we'd even have it if Demon's Souls had had an easy mode. Yes, accessibility is good, but I think this is the rare exception that proves the rule. In the case of games where the difficulty is punishing and learning from mistakes is the very point of the entire game, it just doesn't make as much sense to me. The 3 options I outlined would do well to unite the 2 factions at odds about this game though. Let me know if you think they would ruin the game, or maybe these options would make you want to try it out more. If there are any questions, comments, suggestions, please let me know and I'll address them in either the next video, a little update, or who knows, Twitter, whatever. And as always, thanks for watching. Brainstorm over, I gotta find something else to do after playing over 90 hours of Sekiro. Maybe a nap. That sounds good.